look at what's happened in the past few weeks. The past few weeks have been absolutely momentous. A month ago, you have the US saying anybody who buys energy from Russia, we're going to punish. We're going to put in more tariffs. It's going to be terrible for them. So the US sends out this message. 10 days later, you have Xi, Putin, and Modi who meet in Shanghai, and they're literally French kissing on stage, the three of them. They're like acting like they're the best buddies that have ever existed. Now, just that, by the way, is super important, because let's discuss for a second what's the big macro trend, the big mega trend of the future that will change the world. When I'm in the US, all people want to talk about is AI. Sure, it's exciting, etc. When I'm in Europe, all people want to talk about is how welfare states are about to collapse because fiscal spending is out of control, etc. And so you got to buy gold and you got to buy Bitcoin, and we're coming to the end of the welfare states, and that's perhaps a big macro trend. Sitting in Asia, if you take a step back, you think, okay, today we have Russia, the biggest producer of cheapest commodities in the world. You have China, the biggest provider of capital goods, the biggest provider of capital now to other emerging markets because they have the cheapest cost of capital in the world, and the biggest producer of consumer goods. And then you have India, which is the biggest provider of cheap labor. And now those three leaders are saying, we're going to put these three things together, mix it in a pot, and see what comes out as a stew. Cheapest commodities, cheapest capital goods, cheapest cost of capital, cheapest consumer goods, cheapest cost of labor. It's going to be a boom of epic proportion that comes out of this, a boom of absolutely epic proportion. Now, you take your 30 biggest market caps in the world. 24 out of the 30 are American companies. 2 out of the 30 are Chinese companies, Tencent and Alibaba. One of them is Korean, Samsung. One of them is Saudi Aramco. One of them is Japanese, Toyota. But essentially, so here are your 30. Now, how many of these 30s are going to participate in this boom? If the big macro trend of the next 10 years is the economic integration of China, India, and Russia, the answer is Alibaba is definitely a way to play it. Tencent is perhaps a way to play it. But in your top 30 market caps, there aren't a ton. So I think that the reason these stocks are ripping is that picture in Shanghai. And then I'll go one step further, really showing you that the US-China tensions are over. So the US, again, threatens everybody with sanctions if they deal with Russia. For the past 15 years, Putin has been lobbying China to build the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline. And Xi chooses this very moment to announce to the world, you know what? The US just told me I shouldn't buy more energy from Russia. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a pipeline to buy 3 times as much. It's almost like he said, suck on that. Excuse my French. But it's like, talk about defying a direct US order. Now, you could say, again, it's hubris. You could say China's cruising for a bruising, or it's just they feel pretty confident that things with the US are on an even keel, that the ability of the US to punish China is now limited. And so now all the gas that used to go to Europe is now going to go to China for a fraction of the price, priced in renminbi. And so now you know that for the next 30 years, China, a country that already produces twice as much electricity as the US, will now have the cheapest cost of energy in the world, which is a huge shift, and will pay for energy in its own currency. For the past 15 years, one of the big drivers of US growth was that the US had the cheapest cost of energy in the world, thanks to the shale revolution. This has just shifted. China is now the one that's going to have the cheapest cost of energy. So if you're a big believer in AI, if you think, forget this China, Russia, India economic integration, who cares, whatever, these guys are hicks. I don't care. If you think AI is where it's at, then the question becomes, do you think the constraint in AI is going to be access to computing power? Or do you think the constraint in AI is going to be access to cheap energy? Now, if you think constraint in AI is access to computing power, then you buy NVIDIA and you buy the US. If you think constraint in AI is going to be access to cheap energy, then what's happened in the past 3 weeks is that essentially China's already won that race.